Hello and welcome to the Mirrored Muse podcast, a sanctuary for the soul and a spark for the revolutionary spirit, where our truth is always reflected, our radiance remembered, and our spirit set free. I'm your host, Whitney Amber, and together we'll journey into the depths of what it means to awaken, embody, and expand as the muse of our own life. Through soulful storytelling, raw reflections, guided practices, and revolutionary conversations, this podcast is here to truly meet you in your own becoming. So let's take a deep breath, soften our edges. It's time to step into the mirror. This is your invitation to rise. Hey, love. Welcome back to another episode of the Mirrored Muse podcast. I'm your host, Whitney Amber, and I'm so honored to share some time with you today. This week, we are talking all about, some beautiful divine timing and the great return to my hometown in Tennessee and the myth of going backwards. So let's just dive right on in. Okay, so friends, sometimes you have to return to the OG garden and soil that grew you. Not to stay rooted, but to just rewrite the story completely. Well, this week, I found myself back in my hometown, walking into places and spaces and seeing so many faces that remember me as a 16-year-old basketballer with a messy bun and big dreams, or maybe as the 20-year-old teacher grading papers late into the night, or maybe the 21-year-old wife who just didn't know what she was doing. And I promise there's several other versions of me who had no idea who she would become. And naturally, and just like clockwork, somewhat anticipated also, the universe started pulling out the lovely old props and reminders from the ghost of old identities past. Just to name a few. So first up, we have my car from my first marriage, now exiting my life after 11 years, which honestly, this felt so timely and perfect. I was very much ready and so just relieved and happy to see her go. Also, yes, I totally sold this car back in July, but of course, it was being picked up a month and a half later. That just happens to be the weekend of the Pisces full moon, which we'll talk about that in a moment, but totally points to karmic endings. No, zero coincidences there. Next, so I received multiple teaching job offers, which was like music to the ears of 19-year-old me. And I'm not going to lie, I struggled with this one for real. The certainty and stability of steady income, being back in the service to my community and my own alma mater in the school that I grew up in, where my niece now goes. There's a whole bunch of other reasons I could have justified, but something deep down I could feel urging me to turn this down, as if my intuition was trying to tell me, hey, this may be your last test in what we're going to call Trusting Yourself 101. Use this time at home to create and dive deeper into this dream you've stepped into. So yes, I did turn it down. Next up, we've got being back in my mother's home, cleaning out different closets in her house, which led me to all the old photos showcasing literally all the Whitneys. Some teleported me straight back to the very instant and moment that the photo was taken. I can remember it like it was yesterday. Others felt like lifetimes ago and so very far in the distance. Honestly, some were a little hard to fully remember and to step into. That's how many lifetimes ago it felt like it took me back to. It's so crazy how that happens. But how timely. Last but not least, those family voices that love me but still echo their hopes for me to play small and keep their practical, logical comfort zone as my own, which I've just long outgrown, to be honest. I really believe that every ghost of an old identity is really just a soul checkpoint asking, are you ready to keep walking forward and into your wildest dreams? I think it is honest and important also to note that just a few short months ago, I actually told some friends that being back in my hometown would define failure for me 100%. It was my biggest fear. And it's actually the most perfect gift I could imagine right now in more ways than one. And how beautiful it is to be here now during what I'm coining or calling my bridge season. And as this most authentic, embodied version of myself. And actually, I want to pause for a second and ask you first, is there a place or space in your life that makes you feel small or limited? Does that place exist? Name it. And now, can you imagine the most authentic, whole, embodied version of you walking through the doors of that childhood home or church, school, or house maybe you lost in the divorce, or strolling the streets of that city or hometown you haven't visited in a long time? What is it you need to reclaim here? Is it your power? How does this whole embodied, authentic version of you move? What is your energy speaking to those who see or interact with you? How does this version of you feel in this space now? Can you see through all the illusions that you once called limitations, small, and not enough? Can you see the beauty and bravery of your time there as the bruises begin to fade in the background? Oh, friend, I really hope so. I hope you can begin to rewrite those narratives, those stories and patterns we so often let define us. And not just define us as our identity, but different components that we attach to our identity and worth, such as success, relationships, and self-love. And the reason I pause here for a second is because I think for the very first time in my own life, I'm able to see beyond the smallness and limitations that used to make me feel so suffocated and stifled. To now, all I can see is the incredible beauty that surrounds this place. The peace, the presence of simplicity that I can now totally appreciate. The slow pace, which feels cathartic to my nervous system and my soul. The way the sun rises out my bedroom window every morning like a divine wake-up call. It's probably my favorite. It's like a little cozy corner of the world where I'm surrounded by nature, family, constant surprises, endless memories, and all the Whitneys. And there is the Whitney who loves to be at home spending time and chatting with my mama about all the things. And sometimes integration looks like sitting at your mom's kitchen table and realizing you're not her little girl anymore, but you kind of still are. I mean, after all, it has been almost 16 years since I've lived at home. Wild, I know. But as I was on my regular early morning walk down my road here, my family all live on the same road, which is like the most hometown amazing thing ever. So as I was on my walk that I like to take early in the mornings, I realized regression is the story the ego writes, but reclamation is the story the soul writes. So no, it's like I had this little come into Jesus moment with myself. Like, no, Whitney, this most definitely is not and does not feel like regression. This is and very much feels like reclamation. You see, there's this myth and general fear of going backward instead of forward. Or, well, maybe I should say that's a fear that I definitely have, is not moving forward, not progressing, and all the things. And it's like my mind is saying, well, if you're home, you failed. But simultaneously, it feels like Spirit is saying, if you're home, you're just here to harvest, rest, and receive. You're in deep integration and preparation for this next chapter unfolding. So just make memories and be present with your family. Guys, what a gift is this? What? It's like Spirit is saying the soul knows that home is not a step back. It's a mirror that shows you how far forward you've actually come. I could have absolutely accepted the teaching job. I could have absolutely backed out of the car being sold. I could have absolutely reacted to my family comments and situations in the name of trying to get them to understand me. But that's just not aligned to me anymore. That is not the way I choose to spend my energy. I don't need to be understood by others because I know the voice of my intuition and I know the feeling of when something has reached its expiration date in my life. A little all too well, to be honest. Intuition is actually the key factor here. She's what keeps me aligned and moving in harmony, love, and connection. So now it's like I see all of this happening and unfolding. And it feels very much like what's true here is every offer from the past, whether it's the car, the classroom, the whispers of who I used to be, isn't a trap. It's a checkpoint, a chance to stand rooted in who I've become and whisper back, thank you, but I've actually outgrown this skin. This is no longer aligned to my highest good. Ugh, how empowering and good that feels to even just like say out loud. And to be back in a bedroom of, just like my kid self and be able to reclaim that. Ugh. It sounds so silly, but small things like this I think we often overlook, and they're significant. They help us to not just reclaim, but remember those things we used to love as a kid and the things that used to light us up, you know? But speaking of my highest good, guys, I just cannot leave out the divine timing component with the Pisces lunar eclipse that is happening while this is being recorded. Like, and speaking of highest good, comes this divine timing, which is always aligned to our highest good. Divine timing, some people like to call coincidences and give little eye rolls to, and I get it. I used to be her, totally get it. But this whole return back to my hometown didn't just happen anytime. It's literally happening in the exact window of a Pisces lunar eclipse, a cosmic high tide that's washing away everything we no longer need, which dates back to last September, which was right after I left my corporate job. And it's like I haven't quite arrived to this next layer of a full circle moment, but I feel it as if it's tomorrow. Like, does that make sense? Pisces teaches endings, dissolving illusions, and surrendering to waters bigger than our own two hands can hold. Because for those of you who don't know, Pisces it's the last zodiac sign. And it is a water sign. So coming home in this exact energy feels like the most divine and a little dramatic soul surgery. Like every outdated version of me is being lifted to the surface so it can be released with compassion and integrated, held fully in not just who I used to be, but who I am and who I'm becoming. And the timing, guys, it's personal, it's precise. It's like divine choreography because we're in the 9th month of the year, and 2025 is actually a universal year 9, which is everything to do with the number of completion, endings, and karmic closure. So, of course, it's also the 9th year since I left my first marriage. And now the very last remnant of that chapter, which is the car that just exited my life. That's not coincidence. Guys, that's prophecy. This eclipse whispers what began in endings has now completed its cycle. Let it go. And Pisces reminds me that surrender is also an act of strength. The tide knows where to take me, even when I don't. And that kind of gives me this weird layer of like comfort and confidence to keep moving one step forward and one foot in front of the other as each day passes with excitement, honestly. Even the resurfacing, like of the teaching job offer, that just doesn't feel random. It feels as if spirit asking, will you step into an old role? Or will you actually trust the unseen current that you can feel pulling you forward? And that's exactly what I felt when I left the voicemail of one of my favorite humans and teachers in the world, and actually who I student taught with. When I had to tell her, hey, this just doesn't feel aligned to me. I felt that unseen current pulling me forward into all that's unfolding. And honestly, when I look around, I realize I'm not just back home. I'm standing at a threshold between who this town remembers me to be and who I actually am now, which is Whitney Amber, the Mirrored Muse founder, a cosmic visionary, a woman who had and has the courage to say yes to alignment and her wildest dreams, my wildest dreams. Which then makes me think about like what this place remembers of me versus who I am now. And when I think about that, there's just like this strange dissonance in being seen as the old Whitney, the girl who was searching for her voice, the teacher who felt totally caged, the woman who played roles that just did not fit her soul. But that dissonance is actually medicine. It shows me how far I've evolved. And the spiritual significance is this: being witnessed in the very place that remembers the smallest version of me is how I shed shame and integrate wholeness. It's me saying, yes, she was me, and she belongs too. I love her too. Home is the stage where all my past selves rise for a final bow before I step into the next act. So the beauty of wholeness is not in erasing who I was, but in weaving her into the fullness of who I've become and who I'm still becoming. And wholeness has been a topic from last week to obviously carrying this theme through this week's conversation too. And so I did make a post on Instagram about all these different Whitneys and all these versions of myself that I was so quickly reminded of. And as I was going through my mom's closet, I see all these photos and I'm like, oh my God, like it's just so crazy. So this has been such a vivid and alive lesson, I think, for me, is this wholeness in the versions of me, and how coming home is also about being confronted with all of these Whitneys at once. When I now have the capacity to see, appreciate, love, and hold them all without feeling overwhelmed. Like the 5-year-old girl who twirled in dresses, danced in the front yard, and believed she was a queen. The teenager who longed to escape. Like, I remember in 2009 when I was graduating high school and my parents had just gone through their divorce, and I don't know if we had fully moved into this house yet or not, but I remember feeling that need to just escape. And that was teenage Wit. But there's also the teacher, Miss Whitney, of the third graders. And that teacher played by the rules, even when they didn't fit. And then, of course, the woman who tried to shrink to make others comfortable. It's like they all rise up when I move through this town and meet so many people who are family friends or old coworkers, teammates, and teachers. And it used to feel like I'm split into pieces. But now I know that wholeness isn't about choosing which version to keep. It's about gathering them all back in, kind of like a big hug, and saying, nothing I've lived was wasted. Every version of me belongs, adds character, and like builds my courage to keep going and moving, creating my wildest dreams. So the town may remember me for the context I was in, but my roots, they remember my radiance. And often what I keep seeing and like that keeps coming to mind is, guys, our younger selves always leave us glimpses. I'll call them little breadcrumbs of brilliance, if you will, that we can only receive when we rise above how others defined us. So when I walk into the grocery store and someone still sees me as 2015 Wit, I smile because she is part of me too. And she was the one who first carried the dream that led me here. So in this theme of endings and this great return that feels very dramatic and beautiful simultaneously, there's so many layers of this that I just can't unsee. And the divine timing component of it is one of the larger ones. Like, eclipses are endings, but endings are just the exhale before the next divine inhale. So, I'm going to leave you with this. Where in your life are you calling something a step backward when it might actually be your eclipse-powered invitation to release, surrender, and rise? Because sometimes the garden we're planted back in isn't meant to keep us. It's just meant to show us how ready we are to bloom elsewhere. Aren't you proud of me, guys? I think this is under 30 minutes. And it feels so good. It feels so good to be sitting on my bed and using my voice and just speaking from the heart. That was a dream of mine. And that's a full circle moment in and of itself. Being back home, using my voice that I used to suppress and accept others as my own. No, that cycle is ending too. So, just some food for thought, friends. Step backwards don't exist. We must reframe that. Okay. I also, before we close this episode, just want to mention that today is the last day to enter the Bali Bubble giveaway, which is a 3-night stay at the Bubble Hotel in Uluwatu, Bali. All of the entry details are posted on our Instagram page at the Mirrored Muse. Entries must be in by tonight, September 8th, by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Guys, enter this giveaway. It's so beautiful. This is one of my favorite places. It's actually where I shot a lot of my branding content while I was there for the Mirrored Muse. It is beyond magical, to say the least. And that's exactly what I wanted to gift you guys, is a little taste of magic and a little escape, a little moment of solitude to just be and rest, relax, receive whatever your soul needs. So that deadline is tonight, 11:59 p.m. and the winners will be announced on, or the winner, I'm sorry, will be announced on September 9th.
Well, that was fun. I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in, for trusting me with your time, and for joining this moment, this mirror, this movement of remembering. If something in today's conversation lit a spark, I'd be so jazzed and honored if you'd pass it on by leaving a review, sending it to a friend, or bringing it into your own conversations. For now, you can connect with more inspo, reflections, resources, and our beautiful community on Instagram at The Mirrored Muse. Until next time, stay wild, stay soft, and remember, you are the muse.